Do you ever feel overwhelmed by the ever-changing world of technology? Tech It Out can help make some sense of it all. Breaking down geek speak into street speak, technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman covers consumer technology each week for every listener. Mark tackles the latest news, reviews, and how-tos to help you understand what's hot, what's not, and why.
Hey everyone, welcome to Tech It Out. This is a weekly radio show and podcast that doesn't just celebrate technology, but my goal is to also help demystify it. So you can put away that Geek to English dictionary as you won't need it here. Hey, we have a great show planned for you this hour. In a moment from now, we'll chat with Kobo about its new partnership with Walmart. We'll catch up with Ancestry about their DNA genetics kits. And we'll talk with Justin Aktin, the host of the mega popular YouTube channel, The Thought Emporium. All right, let's kick things off. If you love reading or know someone who does, you'll want to hear this next interview with Rakuten Kobo, the makers of the Kobo e-readers and, of course, the eBook store platform. Last week, there was a major announcement between Rakuten Kobo and Walmart. So to tell us all about it, we're joined by Kobo President and CEO, Michael Tamblyn. Welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me.
Pleasure. So before we talk about this new partnership with Walmart, tell us a bit about Kobo and the parent company, Rakuten.
So Kobo was founded in 2009 and was acquired in 2012 by Rakuten, who is both the largest e-commerce company in Japan and has been making all kinds of very interesting investments around the world in the digital media space and in this space that we're kind of talking about today, which is technology that can help other retailers. And we fit really well into that as the company that helps retailers all over the world who want to sell ebooks to their customers and creates an amazing solution of e-readers and apps and a 6 million title catalog to help make that happen.
All right, so Kobo is both a brand for devices like e-readers as well as a store with tons of content. So it's a platform as well as hardware. And you've got a range of devices from entry-level, smaller screen Kobos that are more affordable to waterproof premium devices with a great backlight. And of course, with all of these models, and something that your competitor doesn't do as gracefully, is that you also support local libraries. So you can borrow an ebook or an audiobook in some cases, if it's the app, and sync it to your Kobo. Instead of always paying for new content, you can also borrow books for free.
That's correct. We've always looked at the device side of the business as this ongoing dialogue with people who love reading, where we're constantly going back to them and saying, what's a barrier that keeps you from reading more? Or what's something that would allow you to bring reading to more places in your day? That's what got us doing things like larger screens, where people who liked having bigger fonts said, listen, I just want to have more words on a page. Or we found out from doing some of our user research that something like 47% of readers spend some time reading near water, either in a bath or at the beach or by the pool. Mm-hmm. And that's what led us to being the first ones to do waterproofing, which made people feel more comfortable about bringing devices with them, whether it was into the bath at the end of the day or on vacation in the middle of the summer.
Right. And as you mentioned, Michael, there are also Kobo apps that you can use on your favorite tablet as well. Now, just to step back even further, before we dive into this Walmart partnership, all the benefits of ebook readers, or e-readers for short, for those who are listening but yet haven't pulled the trigger, is that you can store hundreds or even thousands of books on something thinner than most magazines. You can increase or decrease the font size, even change the style if you like, and the margins. You can double tap on a word and get a dictionary definition. There's countless benefits. If you're reading in bed and you don't want to disturb your partner, a lot of the Kobo ebook readers have an integrated light. So there's so many benefits over a paperback or hardcover book that some people may not have even thought about.
That's right. And the way that we've always thought about ebooks is it's not like they are a complete replacement for paper. I still have paper books in my home. I love a good cookbook, on the kitchen counter. I love a great book of photography. But at the same time, I love carrying my whole reading life around with me in my pocket or in my bag wherever I go. Mm-hmm. To be able to either instantly buy a book that I hear about or read about, to be able to read out in by the pool, in a bathtub, be able to switch from one book to another without carrying a giant bag of paperbacks around with me. All of those are reasons to consider ebooks as a part of your reading mix. Mm-hmm. And what's been fascinating for us about seeing how ebooks have been adopted is that this isn't a digital revolution that's taken place where it's people 18 to 35, early technology adopters, like was the case for digital music or for downloadable video. The kind of people that are going to ebooks are the same kind of people you'd see in a traditional bookstore. They're 45 years old, they're 55 years old, they're 65 years old, and they're people that are drawn to ebooks and e-reading because of convenience and because of the affordability of them and just the accessibility of them, of being able to, as you say, bump up that font size at the end of the day or be able to grab a book right away instead of having to go to the store.
That's another benefit. You don't have to leave your home. You can immediately download a book, which are relatively small files, right to the Kobo directly. And as someone who travels a lot as a journalist, I certainly appreciate having an assortment of several books on one device for whatever I'm in the mood, for that day.
But Michael, if you've ever been on vacation where you've gone to the bookstore, you've loaded up with a whole bunch of things that you think you want to read, you sit down on your deck chair and go, none of these books I want to read right now. That's one of those moments where it really shines through.
Yeah, and you could just download something right then and there. So, Michael, now let's talk about this Walmart partnership last week announced from Kobo, Rakuten Kobo. Very exciting. Tell us about the scope of this partnership.
This has been a theme that we've been building on since 2009 when we got started. We could see that there was incredible opportunity in being able to partner with retailers who were great booksellers, who had well-established brands, had customers who loved them, but who didn't have an ebook solution. And that's what really carried us to 24 countries around the world. Coming back then to the United States, Walmart found themselves in exactly that same situation. They're starting to be very aggressive in e-commerce. They knew that they had to have that complete solution for engaging with and keeping customers, and we had developed this track record of being able to create very compelling and competitive solutions for ebooks for retailers around the world. So we ended up in dialogue very quickly and then found ourselves right in partnership discussions and leading to the launch this week.
So explain to us, please, what this means. So someone listening right now, they're a Walmart customer. What could they now do if they're a book lover?
In the United States right now, you could walk into any of, 3,800 Walmart stores, find a Kobo display, and in some stores that's going to be with devices so that you can try them out, you can see how they feel, you can pick one up and get used to that experience. We also have cards that allow redemption of ebooks at point of sale, so we can actually show you a book, you can pick it up, you can take it to the till, you can pay for it with or without a credit card and then redeem and download that book at home. And we think that the in-store experience is really important because what it does is it introduces people to ebooks in an environment that they're already comfortable with. Also on Walmart.com, we're fully integrated with their book section there as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about Walmart.com, like the online strategy. So you're at Walmart's website, you're doing some online shopping, maybe you're ordering some groceries or some home decor items. You feel like reading the latest Dan Brown book or what have you. You can then do the search right then and there and then acquire it either digitally, the audiobook version for those who maybe commute to and from the office and have some opportunities to listen to a book, or you can buy the softer hardcover through Walmart.com as well.
That's correct. And audio has been a huge and growing segment of the book market. It's really exploded in the last few years and has done so because people are trying to fit reading into more parts of their day. So while they have time at the end of the day to actually sit down with a book and read it, they also want to bring reading into that commuting time, the time they have at the gym, the time that they're doing housework or doing the dishes. Everyone's fighting for little slices of time, and we want to make sure that they can bring reading into those if they can. So both buying audiobooks one at a time or signing up for our subscription service that provides an audiobook a month. All are available through Walmart.com.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know about the subscription service. So as we wrap up, Michael, where can our listeners learn more about this new partnership with Walmart, as well as other Kobo offerings?
Can go to Walmart.com. We're all over the front page right now. Can go to Kobo.com, and we'll be able to educate you there as well. And walk into any Walmart store in the United States, and there will be a display for you there as well.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on this huge partnership. It doesn't get any bigger than Walmart. So that's amazing for Kobo, Rakuten Kobo, and great for Walmart as well. And then Kobo.com has all the other information on everything else tied to Kobo, including their latest e-readers as well. Thank you so much, Michael. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark.
Hey, before we continue on with Tech It Out, I did want to thank our sponsor. This program is brought to you by ASUS, creating technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. ASUS, for those in search of incredible. Visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. When we return on the program, we're going to talk with Ancestry about their new DNA kit and what information you can extract from it. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want. Find the Tech It Out podcast at iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. So you've probably heard of those trendy DNA kits. They're affordable, easy to use, and they can open up a ton of information about you and your family history and your ancestry. If you saw my video about it, last year I tried the Ancestry DNA kit, and I really enjoyed clicking through the maps, history, and ties to relatives that I frankly didn't know I had. Some surprises in there too, like finding out I'm partially Irish. All right. So it could explain why I like potatoes, but I digress. All right. To learn more about what people are doing with their DNA kit, we're joined on the line by Brad Argent. He's a global spokesperson for Ancestry. Welcome to the show, Brad.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Before we dive into how people are using this newfound information about themselves and their family, let's take a step back and talk about Ancestry DNA at a high level. What does the company do?
So what Ancestry does, and I'm sure many of the listeners out there will be familiar with Ancestry as a family history company. We've been in the family history space since the mid-1980s, I think. So if you want to position Ancestry, we are about helping people tell the story of themselves. And of course, as soon as we got into that space of consumer genomics, it really changed the game, I think, for us. That ability for people to be able to find out something about themselves, particularly if they were in a situation where they knew nothing. Mm-hmm. So traditionally, Ancestry has been about family history, which is that methodological sort of process of researching your family, stepping back through the generations, finding records to, confirm the existence of people, finding out the stories about them, the journeys that they might have gone on. What DNA does is it tells sometimes that story and sometimes, surprisingly, other stories. And I think this is one of the reasons why so many people are now coming into family history, is because they're coming into it through the use of DNA.
So walk us through the process. You order a kit, it comes to your door in a couple of weeks, and then what? I believe you provide some saliva in a tube and then send it off.
Yes, you do. It's not the most elegant of processes. You need to generate some saliva. It's about a teaspoon full of saliva. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of things that you can do to help that process off. One of the things that we tell people to do often is when you're doing it, think of your favorite food, and you'll start to generate some saliva. And then you put it in the tube, you screw the lid on, and there's this little blue liquid goes into the saliva, and that's a preservative or a sealant, if you like. That'll keep that sample viable for many, many months. You send it off back in the post to the labs, and then what they do is they extract DNA from that saliva. And we look at particular bits of your DNA. We don't look at all of it, but we look at around 700,000 markers, right, or chunks of DNA And from that, we are able to tell wonderful, wonderful things, an almost endless array of things about who you are and who your ancestors might have been.
So with that in mind, Brad, what kind of info is obtained? I guess, again, at a high level, it sounds like there's a lot you could extract. Remember the excitement of getting the email saying, hey, Mark, your results are in. And you click on it, and it opens up this secure site where you first, by the way, we should step back and say, before you provide the saliva and all that, you register your kit, which is a one-time thing. You just log in with the code on the box, if I remember correctly, and that establishes that that DNA sample is yours. And then you've got that website or app that you want to log in remotely from. And then it opens up a map, and you see like this like color-coded map based on going back a few hundred years. And then again, some suggested relatives that you may have based on their DNA samples, right?
Yeah, look, they're the two big takeaways that you get from it. One, you get this snapshot of where your ancestors may have been in the last 100 or in some cases thousands of years, which can be really interesting, particularly if you're the kind of person who doesn't know a great deal about your family history. In an instant, you're getting a view of how you are connected to the world, whether it's, discovering that you're Irish and explaining your love of potatoes.
French fries, to be exact, but yeah.
Or whether it's actually confirming a myth in the family, right? There might be this sort of mystery or myth that you had Italian connections or that you had some kind of connections to Eastern Europe. These things can come out in your DNA. And it's like wonderful to get this visual snapshot of where your ancestors were around the globe. But then the other side of this story is how it connects you with other people in the network. So we have 10 million people in the Ancestry network, which is in one sense, it sounds like an enormous number of people, but in another sense, it doesn't sound like it's big enough, when you look at the size of the world. But it's amazing how, I have yet to see somebody take a test and not be connected to someone.
So we're chatting with Brad Argent, a global spokesperson for Ancestry. We're chatting about these Ancestry DNA kits you can order. And that partially answers my question, my next question, before we dive into what people are doing with this DNA info. And that is, why use Ancestry opposed to these other DNA companies? And I think you answered it by talking about the pool of DNA samples you've got. It's the largest database out of all of these companies, if I'm not mistaken, and therefore it's more accurate, correct?
Yeah, look, it's certainly the largest, and it's the largest by, a factor of, or at least 2 or 3, right? So we're very much the biggest pool. So if you're looking for connections, obviously you want to go looking in the biggest pool.
Hey, we'll return with Ancestry and Brad Argent, their global spokesperson, in a couple of moments from now. When we return on Tech It Out, you're listening to the Radio America Network. Stay with us.
Want to follow Mark? Google him. Mark with a C and Saltzman with a Z. Breaking down geek speak into street speak. This is Tech It Out. Tech It Out with technology columnist, author, and TV personality Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. We're chatting with Brad Argent, global spokesperson for Ancestry, about its popular DNA kit. Now, before the break, Brad, I asked you about the benefit of having the biggest or largest database in this space.
Because we have so much data, we're actually able to do more detailed, more in-depth analysis and give you better accuracy on where we think your ancestors might have been. Now, it is important to point out that when we do that, when we give you ethnicity details, those details are an estimate, right? But it's an estimate based on the best understanding that we have of the science today. It's wonderful to see how the science is applied. But on the other side of the coin, where we are connecting you with people, that science is very clearly understood. And those results that you get, those connections that you make, are robustly guaranteed connections with other people. Now, the challenge, of course, Mark, is sometimes those connections that you make genetically don't necessarily match back with the connections that you might have in your family tree.
And hence the surprise that many people are getting. But this is science, right? So it's not hearsay. It's not a secret swept under a rug. This is science. So this is something that you could bet on, I would argue, opposed to what you've been told your whole life, whether it was intentionally misleading or just, some mistake happening down the line, right?
Well, look, very much so. But you have to go into this remembering that there are two sides to everybody's story. So we have, right, the DNA gives us this genetic story, right? It tells us where our genes have come from and how we are genetically connected to other people. But as we grow up, as we live within a family and we live within a community, we have what I call a mimetic history, right? And these are the stories that are told. These are family traditions that we have, right? And these things shape us just as much as our genetics shape us. And so if the two things don't agree, it doesn't mean one takes away from the other, right? Collectively, those things add up to who you are. So if you do get a result that might contradict with the stories that you're told, what it's doing is it's giving you more stories. It's not taking anything away. It's adding to the story of you.
All right, let's now chat about what some people are doing with their DNA info. I heard some people are traveling to places that they never thought they would want to go to in the past, or maybe they're connecting with long-lost relatives, it sounds.
Yeah, look, there's two key things that people do almost instantly when they get their results. The first thing is they think about traveling somewhere, right? It gives them a reason to go, right? Because they get these ethnicity results and they feel they have a reason to go somewhere or a connection to a place. But I think, and whilst that might be a wonderful goal to have, for a lot of people, the easiest thing to do is cook. And so if you're anything like me and you get results back that indicate perhaps you'll have a connection to Italy, it gives you a reason to have some pasta, right? Not that you necessarily need a reason for doing that, but it doesn't hurt to have a justification. And so people are actually looking at it now as a way of connecting with different cultures. And an easy way to do that is through food. But the point you bring up about the connections is really interesting, because I think what we experience in the 21st century is, we've had this nuclear family for many, many years, right? Our grandparents grew up in a time where they knew their extended families. They often grew up in the same street as the rest of their family. They had connections. And we don't have those in the 21st century. Families have become quite small. And what people are doing with DNA is they're connecting with cousins, first cousins, second cousins, and families are becoming bigger through this process.
So, Brad, I know that some of my listeners may be concerned about what's being done with their data, their DNA information. Can you talk to us about any privacy safeguards that are in place at Ancestry?
Yeah, look, and it's a really important question. And, you are talking about your genetic data. So you need to understand how is that data being stored and how is it being used. And so I would encourage anybody that's out there thinking of taking a DNA test, whether it be Ancestry or any of the other players in the market, read the privacy statement, understand the terms and conditions. We have in the world we live in, we have this insatiable appetite for technology, and sometimes we leap over and just click yes. What we need to do is understand the environment that we're operating in and understand the controls that we have. And I think most of the people playing in the market are playing very fair games and are putting all the information on the table. So I think be informed, make informed choices, and just get the benefit of the science and the technology. As long as you understand how to control your information, you should be fine.
Okay, thanks, Brad. All right, so let's wrap up on how much Ancestry DNA, the kit, costs and where we can learn more about it.
So the kits cost $99 in the US and about $129 in Canada. And there's some small shipping costs associated with that as well. But if you keep your eye out, and if you're a bit of a bargain hunter like I am, you may well find it for considerably less than that if you pick your timings right. And of course, they are the perfect gift. If you're looking for could give somebody something, and that's the kind of person who's got everything, it makes a perfect gift.
That's exactly what I bought my wife, Kelly, because I couldn't figure out what to buy her for her birthday. And she was jealous that I did this test and unlocked some information about my past and my family and geographical information. And she wanted to do the same. So that's what I bought her. So it's a good point. And on that note about pricing, Brad, I know Amazon recently had a really big sale. So keep your eyes peeled both at retail and online. There's also codes that you can research online to get a discount. But even at full price, it's well worth the money, I'd argue, based on what you're finding. And as you mentioned, Brad, once your DNA is securely logged and it's with the technicians, there's always new information that can be extracted from it. I recently got a report, even though I did my thing about a year ago, I recently got a report that had 3 new bits of information that weren't there when I first did the test last year. So you can always get more information, and that's all opt-in on your secure email and site. So great stuff. Brad Argent for Ancestry. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
It's a real pleasure, Mark. Thank you very much.
Before we continue on with the show, a quick shout out to my sponsor. Tech It Out is brought to you by ASUS, creating technology for today and tomorrow's smart life. ASUS for those in search of incredible. Visit asus.com/US/radio for more info. That's asus.com/US/radio. Perfect, by the way, for back to school season to purchase a new laptop, desktop, or hybrid. We'll be right back with more Tech It Out. Stay with us.
Breaking down geek speak into street speak. Check it out. Hosted by Mark Saltzman.
Welcome back to Tech It Out. Whether you're tech shy or tech savvy, or probably somewhere in between, we're thrilled to have you along for this weekly program that celebrates but also demystifies technology. All right, let's jump into our next interview. When you think of scientists, images of older, crazy-haired men in white lab coats probably come to mind, right? Well, don't expect that when you subscribe to the Thought Emporium. It's a popular YouTube channel hosted by 23-year-old Justin Aktin, based in Montreal, who covers some pretty cool tech topics, from nanotech to nuclear physics and everything in between, in a manner that's just as entertaining as it is informative. We're joined on the line by Justin right now, so welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mark, for having me.
Sure thing. Now, before we talk about the Thought Emporium, your YouTube channel, first tell us a bit about yourself, Justin. Are you formally trained? You've always had a love for science, even as a young child, right?
Yeah, so I've been doing science for, honestly, as almost as long as I can remember it. I started, my first adventures in science started when I was about 15, when my dad let me set up a little lab in our basement. And at the time I was in high school, and I wasn't being engaged by the classes. So I decided that I wanted to learn something a little more difficult. So I taught myself the basics of nuclear physics and started working on a little demonstration nuclear fusion reactor. Moving on from there, eventually I went off to university. I did 3 years of biology. I never ended up finishing the degree. And then from there, it turned into starting a research company and more seriously leaning into the YouTube videos, and everything has kind of just gone from there.
So is this YouTube channel your full-time gig, or is it something you do on the side?
It is now, thanks to the support from my patrons, because I have a Patreon. I'm able to do this full time now.
Sorry, what does that mean exactly, Justin?
So Patreon is this really great tool where people can donate money either once a month or every time you put out a piece of content.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the explanation. All right. So with that in mind, tell us about the Thought Emporium.
So the Thought Emporium originally just started as me wanting to show that it's possible to do all these incredible and high-tech science things using materials that people don't necessarily think to use because they're very readily available. Or explorations of how things work that you wouldn't necessarily find on some of the other edutainment channels. Mm-hmm. But then it kind of morphed into tackling more and more difficult projects and going from just kind of going over like chemical reactions and that sort of thing to, okay, this is an actual like novel thing that nobody's tried before. Let's work through it, go through every piece, make sure that everything's open source, and make it as accessible and easy to understand as physically possible.
So what's an example of an experiment that you did a video for that leveraged just regular household products that people may have?
So probably one of my favorites from the last year was we built a camera that could see Wi-Fi. And it was all built out of just scrap materials that we had lying around. But all the code got published open source. Every template and piece that we used was published, rather than using like really complicated tools. Like instead of using 3D printers or milling machines or any of that, I literally used a scroll saw for cutting out the parts. And it, just took my time and filed everything and then showed exactly how it worked. And then we were able to take a picture of first the inside of our workspace, and we could see where the router was. And we actually discovered a router that was sort of like hidden and that we didn't know was there. But then we took the machine outside and took a picture of an entire building, and we could see where every router in the building was, which was really, really cool.
So this video was published a month ago. It's 9.5 minutes, and I can see that you've had over 440,000 views so far. So it's called Building a Camera That Can See Wi-Fi, which is pretty awesome. You have another one, Justin, that you did last year called The Complete Guide to Magnet Implants, which has netted almost 600,000 views. So obviously this channel is getting quite popular. Who would you say your core audience is? Are they younger? Are they science geeks? Or are they just regular folks?
Honestly, it's a really widespread. There's definitely the audience is definitely a little bit older, so less in the way of like 18 and under, more like 18 to 34 is the main hunk of the audience. Mm-hmm. But honestly, it's a really, really widespread. I've had people who are professional scientists and like, academic professionals, but also it's been a lot of kids who were in sort of the same situation that I was, where they were just really bored in school and they didn't know that it was possible to do all this cool stuff without a massive budget. And so I've had tons of kids write in being like, hey, I want to do one of your projects as my science fair project. That's so flattering. Yeah, it really has been great. And the best was I did one video where we pulled images off of passing weather satellites, and I've had so many people write in going, hey, I replicated your setup and I managed to do this. And here's the pictures that I pulled out of space of the Earth. Like, here you go. Wow. So that's been really, really cool. And it's also been interesting just seeing people doing the same sorts of things and posting their own videos and their own takes on it, which has been really great.
Hey, we're going to continue our chat with Justin Aktin. He is the producer and host of the Thought Emporium, a very popular science-based channel on YouTube. After this short break, we'll talk with him about his favorite videos on his own channel, what separates his work from others, what other science channels he recommends for us to check out, and a lot more. So stay with us. You're listening to Tech It Out, the weekly radio show and podcast via Radio America. We'll be right back.
Follow Mark Saltzman on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. Listen to Tech It Out whenever you want.
We're chatting with Justin Aktin. He's a 23-year-old, should I say, scientist and YouTube host. You're not a formal scientist, just to clarify, right?
Well, I mean, that's sort of a funny concept. What makes somebody a scientist? Because only recently was it that you have a degree. Right. Like for most of human history, scientist was the person who put in the work and published the data and scientists were traditionally like dukes and stuff, like people who had enormous amounts of money and nothing better to do with their time. Mm-hmm. So I would absolutely call myself a scientist. Okay, I put in the work, I publish good data, it does the thing.
But I think, Justin, you're proof that the traditional sort of educational template, like going to university, it's not for everybody. And, you dropped out, admittedly, out of your course because it wasn't what you had thought it was going to be. Yet you can hear your thirst for knowledge and your thirst for sharing your knowledge as well. It's right. Tell us about your favorite video on the Thought Emporium.
I think my favorite video from the last year probably has to be the permanent treatment for lactose intolerance that we put up. It was easily the most intense biology video that I've put up, but for me, it was quite literally the most life-changing insofar as I was very, very lactose intolerant beforehand. So me and my business partner reverse engineered a paper from 1998 where they'd developed a virus that can go in and basically teach your body how to produce the enzymes required to break down lactose.
Wow.
So we ended up getting the DNA for the virus, grew it in mammalian cells, produced the virus, extracted it, loaded it into a couple of pills, and then I took the pills, and I am no longer lactose intolerant. And so the entire process got put up on YouTube so that people could look at it and see where I could have improved. And I've actually taken a lot of the feedback on that particular project and will be incorporating it into any future iterations of that project. So improving the DNA, because we sort of did it like off the shelf the first time, but for if we were ever going to try and bring that to market or approach the FDA to get it properly tested, we wanted to make some improvements. But either way, the fact that we were able to make that virus and essentially cure my lactose intolerance was really, really cool. And so it's easily my favorite video.
Is there any way you can patent that? Or I think you said you took an existing concept, right? Or did you modify it? What could you do to protect that?
The thing is, we're not actually super big on patents. I would much rather put that out for free just for people to use, because the thing is, to actually make that requires a fairly expensive lab. And the only reason I was able to do it was because I had access to my friend's lab at the time. So it's not like people are going to just be doing this themselves. To actually do it requires a fair amount of equipment. So I would rather just put it out there for free where, people can just see it, because I've got other things I want to do. I don't want to become the lactose pill guy.
Wow.
But at the same time, if we wanted, there's a bunch of tweaks that we could make to the DNA so that it would be patentable, but we're not sure if we're going to go down that route.
Yeah, even if you didn't want to work on it, but if you were able to sell the idea or the patent to a big pharma company that could fund all your other science-related passion projects from here till eternity, I would think. Finally, Justin, what science-related YouTube channels do you subscribe to?
There's so many good ones these days. Some of my favorites, the one that got me started was Nerd Rage. It's a phenomenal chemistry channel. He's been doing really, really great stuff for as long as YouTube's been around, almost.
Cool. I'm a fan of Neil deGrasse Tyson's work.
He's always fun.
Yeah, a lot more astronomy than I would say, pure science, but that's obviously a subset of it. And then what about ASAP science guys? What about those guys?
Yeah, those guys are good. I'm honestly the science channels that I enjoy the most are less the edutainment stuff like ASAP science, and more of the Nerd Rage or Applied Science or Styropyro, like people who actually do the thing and don't just talk about it.
Right.
Although when it comes to just talking about a subject, easily my favorite channel is 3 Blue 1 Brown. It is the only channel that I've found that makes math actually entertaining, because rather than trying to go really heavy on making you memorize stuff, it's okay. Let's look at this problem from the perspective of the first people to ever approach this problem and look at it from a very visual standpoint.
Cool.
So it makes things look really, really cool and really intuitive.
All right, Justin, continued success on the Thought Emporium. There's a new video every Monday, so folks should subscribe at YouTube. Again, just look for the Thought Emporium. And hey, thanks for your time and congrats on everything you've achieved so far at such a young age. And I can't wait to see what you're working on next.
Thanks, and thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you've all enjoyed today's show. Thanks for tuning in. And a big thank you to my sponsor. Tech It Out is brought to you by ASUS. We'll speak with you next time on Tech It Out. Ciao for now.